both of you on LinkedIn, so that's a little bit ahead of some of the other sessions we've had. But I figured it probably makes sense to just give each of you a couple minutes of like a rundown on who you are, how you got here, what you're looking for, and maybe like what has or hasn't worked in your job search so far. And then after that, what we'll do is we'll do like 15, 20 minutes with Nick, 15, 20 minutes with Peter. And then what we'll do is we'll just kind of go through this live. If it makes sense before that, I can spend maybe 5 minutes just quickly going through the document on sort of like what we're going to do. But I think most of the time it's just better spent like jumping into it ourselves. Does that sound like a pretty good agenda?
Sure.
Cool. All right, Nick, why don't we start with you? Tell us how you got to this Zoom call today.
Got laid off at the Muse end of March 31st, and I had a few calls with my former manager, just talking about like what I want to do next, and I had a few friends also who sort of helped me out with just getting job resources or any referrals or anything. So number one thing you just got to do is networking. And my one friend, Yuri, recommended I hire me to just kind of check that out and just get part of that network as well as just other ones. So, and then Serena reached out to me and we had a conversation a couple of days ago. So what has and hasn't worked for me so far? Referrals, that's like name of the game. Just reaching out to anybody who is currently working somewhere that you want to go to, say like, going in, just asking asking for a job sometimes isn't the best first option, but just saying, hey, I'd love to get 15 minutes, pick your brain. Like, I want to learn a little bit about what you do and what your company does. And then, go from there. So I have a few ducks in the water in that arena. There's also the strategy of just applying to a bunch of jobs and sifting it out later, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, because volume is important, but sometimes it kind of bites you in the butt later on. And let's see. And then the other big obstacle for me is when you want to pivot. Like I was an SDR. I graduated. I got promoted to senior SDR, and I don't necessarily think I want to go into like an AE role next, which is more of a natural progression. I want to get into either customer success or account management. And sometimes when you reach out to, when you apply, they'll look at your resume and they're like, "Oh, well, you're an SDR. You really don't have that experience," and it's really hard to make that initial introduction. So that's been my main thing. But like in terms of next steps, and I talked to Hytham and Serena before, I'm comfortable taking an SDR role next as long as there's an opportunity to go into customer success or there's more flexibility into like a next role.
Got it. Cool. And do you have that's all super clear and succinct. Thanks. Do you have like one or two CS or AM roles in mind that we can maybe work on today?
I had a couple. Admittedly, they're not cold outreaches. They're people who I've reached out with before, but there's still some more things. So there's a company called Aircall that it's an SDR role, but they said that you can get promoted to customer success. I have a friend there, and she just said we're not hiring right now, but I'm trying to break in there. And then the other one, I had an interview at a company called Culture Amp. It was a renewals manager, but what they said was like they wanted me to go to the next round, but they said like there's so many people already applying for this role. We were already moving forward with a bunch of people, so maybe next time.
Got it. Okay. I think we can work with one or both of those, or at least get some influence from there. Cool. All right. That makes a ton of sense. And just real quick, curious, any particular reason why you're looking to go to like a post-sale role in customer success or AM instead of pre-sale with SDR, AE, something like that?
Sure. Overall, I just want to have more of a consultative sale, where I believe with an account executive role, I was on the fast track at the Muse, and when I was looking at the things I liked and didn't like about that role, like having a more transactional sale and kind of driving to the close is something that it was more of a challenge for me, but I was working towards it and I was just trying to get better. I had a pretty honest conversation with my former boss, and she just said, I see you more as an account manager doing more like long-term relationship building, using empathy and kind of doing that. And it kind of like, for context, like the 3 of the 4 SDRs who got promoted before me, went to AE, couldn't make it, went to account manager.
Sure.
It's just like, it's more of like like I can say this now that I'm not working there. It's more of a systematic problem that they had at that company where it was so hard to make that transition from SDR to AE, and then AM, but it just became more of a natural because of who they hired and how they trained. That's kind of what happened.
Makes total sense. And oddly enough, I think this is kind of like a systemic problem industry wide where there's a real disconnect, I think, and really like a disvalue on the skill set and like craft of creating pipeline and like creating demand through a sales development role. And then you work super hard to get good at that. And then all of a sudden you're expected to go into a pipeline management closing role. And it doesn't always translate, but there's not always a lot of opportunity for true like career growth and progression, which might be a topic for a completely other conversation. But I kind of see the struggles and challenges you're talking about in the micro applied throughout the whole sort of sales profession. So I think that's really interesting that you are seeing that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks. Peter, what about you?
Yeah. Where do you want me to begin? Kind of give you a background about myself and what I'm looking for?
Yeah, where I think I remember Hytham saying you might be looking for stuff in Denver or remote, but you mentioned you're in New Jersey, so that was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah. So I just moved back to Jersey from Denver just very recently. I was in Denver I was a co-founder of a startup that got me down there. We ended up selling the startup to another group of founders that were taking it over. So I moved back to Jersey and, turned the page, so to speak, and put my founder hat on the shelf, and I'm looking to work for a growing brand. So, I have a ton of sales experience. Sales is in my blood. It's what I know. It's what I do. It's who I am. But I'm also a connector. I'm a writer. I contribute articles to several different publications. And I've gone to, hundreds of conferences as media, and I have just, a beast of a network. So for me, I don't want to get pigeonholed into only providing value through sales. So that's my challenge in finding a position to work with. So, after talking with, Hytham, who I know for several years through the New York, startup community and the ecosystem there, after talking with them, we figured out, well, maybe a community manager is an interesting role or something in that, that realm, entrepreneur in residence type thing. I like to support founders, several founders at a time. That's what I enjoy doing in different ways, all of the ways that I can do. So I believe in my approach in sales, and the way I separate myself from the others is with, what I've just learned as the new term. I'm just able to put a term on it now, but it's multi-dimensional value, providing multi-dimensional value. That's something that I've always been doing through sales, through intros, through writing articles. That was what I've been doing. And just recently I read an article from a sales pro that I follow in the New York, Jason Grad, started a couple companies, started writing really cool articles, and he put that word out there, multidimensional value, and defined it. And I was like, that's what I've been doing. Like, now I have a way to like easily describe what I bring to the table. So that's, I guess, where I'm at right now. I am working like freelance sales for a couple different companies as an independent contractor. One of them is a fairly large company. It is more or less like a part-time job right now. So that's with the Gadget Flow. So they, sell marketing and promotion services to physical product companies that are doing product launches or crowdfunding. So I'm pretty happy there, but I think it's a little low on my want for impact. So I want to have more impact with the work that I'm doing, and selling marketing plans doesn't doesn't check that box for me. So that's where I'm at. So I'm in the exploration phase. I do have one or two companies in mind that I would really like to work with. One I think might be a pipe dream for a little while until I have some more achievements in my belt and be actually qualified. The other one I think is quite feasible.
Cool. I like that you've got the really aspirational one and one that you think is more feasible. And you're a really interesting case because, it almost sounds like I'm thinking of a podcast from SaaStr, I think it was sometime last year, and they were interviewing someone who had basically made up the role. I can't remember his title, but he's working at a VC fund, and he was like the community manager, more or less, for the founders. So he kind of acts as like a liaison between the partners and the real money managers within the fund, and what the founders actually need in execution and ops. But he kind of created this role after taking a long time and thinking about what, not necessarily what am I the best at, but what am I the only person who can, what is my completely unique set of skill sets, and how can I go market that to a company or fund or whatever, where I can have the most complete impact. So it kind of sounds like you know how to get a job and get income when you need it, like you've done now, and now it's a matter of really hunting for that whale of an opportunity and thinking of the right way to position yourself in a very sort of unique set of, what was it called? Multi-dimensional value. I really like that.
Yeah. I'll send the article in the email thread that we have, and if you guys can share it with Nick, I think he'd appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. I will. That's great. Awesome. Well, thanks for giving me some good context for each of you. Let's do this. So both of you seem to likely have a pretty good grasp of like cold outbound prospecting, and have some sort of process that you've put into place in your professional experience. So I won't spend too much time breezing through. I'm just going to share my screen here real quick. This sort of SOP doc, but just to sort of give more of like a high level overview of where I'm coming from and how this works. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
All right, great. So basically, a little over a month ago, I was my team was having a hard time getting more traction from our outbound. Decent, like 2-3% from cold outreach to book meetings, but I knew we were probably leaving a lot on the table. And there's a really, really great webinar by Beck Holland at Chorus. I got the recording in the deck here. Long and short of it was, it's really easy to now use like LinkedIn specifically to lever people's desire to talk about themselves for your own benefit in setting up a call, whether that's for a job, whether that's for just general networking, you want to pitch a product, whatever. And so what's really worked well for my team in this very specific sort of like tactical execution is basically just going through the thought leaders at the company or someone who's somewhat adjacent to somebody I want to talk to, and then we'll go straight to something they've authored, a comment they've made, maybe they link to an article or interview they've done, and then at scale you can very easily take just a little snippet of it, add maybe a sentence or two to expand on the quote you're giving, and we've just been getting flooded with really great feedback from the prospects we reach out to saying, I've never seen an email like this, how, you must have taken forever. And really it's like a 5-10 minute process. And so it's really, really applicable to the job hunt I think it's just sort of like a mental switch for a lot of people where they don't really think, well, I can take sort of that same approach I would take in selling and apply it to selling myself. And this is basically, when you go back through this is sort of just a screenshot, step-by-step example of like how we went to someone specifically, what we went to pull out the content, somebody who engaged with it, and then how we went through the whole email process. Any questions on this sort of flow, or things that like don't make sense, do make sense?
I follow you.
Pretty straightforward. Okay, cool. So let's do this. We'll do, let's go with you first, Nick, and we'll do about 15, 20 minutes, and then Peter will do you at the end. We'll spend like 15, 20 kind of going through. Maybe we should focus on the aspirational one for you too, since I think that might be like a bigger benefit. Cool. So Nick, I think what I've usually done here, and I'll just keep sharing my screen, is I guess I can start here at Prestige. I was looking into one of your former employers, Interseller. We sell software to recruiting agencies, so I might ask for an intro to somebody here later. This is a pretty big company, but let's start with, I'll go to the LinkedIn homepage. Actually, I should go to jobs. Is there a particular, do you know if there's a job posting on LinkedIn, or if there's like a company jobs page that we can go to and just sort of like look at the specific language of the job post?
We could do maybe like Policy Genius.
Cool. Let's try. I'll try it. See if it has something listed here.
Do you want a specific company, or do you want like a job title? What would be better?
Either or. Policy Genius will be great.
Okay.
Go and then see now. Let's see. Sort by, date posted, features, experience level. So it looks like they've got maybe like 30 roles on here. So this shouldn't be too hard. Sort by what's relevant. Okay. Let's do. Is there a particular one at Policy Genius that you know of, or?
There's a customer success and there's a sales associate role. Either of them could be fine.
All right, great. So let's look for features. Where are they show? Okay. So here's the sales associate in New York, and then let me just see if there's a customer success that I can pull, since that is more of what you're immediately into. Like this. The CS Associate Property and Casualty in New York?
Sure. Also, if this is an example, do you want me to do one that I haven't like applied to yet? Would that be easier, or I've?
Well, we could, but if this is one that I'd rather work on something that's more tangible and something you would take away immediately and act on. So if this is a role that you really want to move forward and you feel like it's kind of stuck at, well, I applied but haven't heard from anyone, we could certainly apply this process here. If there's another opportunity that you haven't done anything with and you want to start from scratch there, either way, we can make something happen.
Yeah, like I don't want to waste your time. I apologize. I'm already in process there. It's just the first one that came to mind. So
cool.
We can maybe just do like a job title, and then we can just start from there.
Cool.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Let's do...
we do sales development representative for like customer success. Yeah, Flexport or ZocDoc I haven't applied to yet. We can do either of those.
Cool. Let's do Flexport. All right, posted 4 days ago, so that's pretty good. And this is just kind of like the crazy thing too, right? 4 days, 1,300 views, 3,000 applicants.
300.
300. And that's like
Still
kind of right in line with a lot of numbers like Glassdoor will post. Roughly, you can expect 250 to 300 applicants, and 4 to 6 will get selected for screening and interviewing. So just so much noise to try to cut through. You're going up against like keyword algorithms, and you maybe have 5 or 6 seconds to even get passed on. So this can kind of flip that over, where what I like to do is kind of go straight to the what you'll do and sort of like what you'll need section. And let's see if there's anything like new sales ops, demonstrate value through phone calls, email, LinkedIn, other social mediums. Okay. So this one stands out to me for one particular reason, because they're basically telling you you're going to need to use LinkedIn and social. You're going to do social selling as part of your prospecting and outbound. That's exactly what we're going to be doing to sell you to somebody in the process. So I think that's a good thing to sort of highlight on. Now I just want to try to think about who we might want to go after. My immediate thought would be somebody who is like a sales dev, head of Biz Dev, something like that. Any thoughts on like who you would target for?
Yeah, I would, if there's a SDR manager, if there's a recruiting, like director of recruiting or or talent acquisition, some like mid-level decision maker.
Got it. Yep, I think we're on the same page there. Let's go to, let's look for, let's just see what we get. Okay, and then maybe I can also throw in location. Maybe let's do New York. All right, so that should be a smaller pool. GM, sales director. I think both these are decent. There's also there's a really good podcast actually by one of the, I don't know if he's still there, but he was the VP of sales at Flexport at the time. It's a SaaSer podcast, and he talks about how they work in pods. Just FYI, it might not be the best use case for this example, but I would Google that and take a look. It's a really, really deep insight into how SDRs work exactly with one AE and work with one CSM, and why they choose that method and why it works for them. That would be something that I think would be super attractive to like promote about yourself if you were to get to a conversation, or maybe even Google it. So like the GM, what does she do? VP of Ops, General Manager, San Francisco. So she could be decent, but I think maybe the more immediate outreach for sales director, I wonder if this is like an actual AE. AE, sales director, enterprise. Okay, interesting. So she had sold, likely knows a little bit about the SDR process, probably oversees one or a pod, and she has a decent amount of activity. So I'd run with Mariana, and let's just see if I can find a post from her. That's cool. Hero of the week. Part of our team making this happen. All right, so maybe not the most amazing things here. Let's see, what else can we think of? I began working with Susie. I'm just going to see what Susie does. Head of, well, that's a cool title. What has she done? Business strategy and ops director solutions, head of Flexport. Okay. All right, so I'm kind of thinking just off the top of my head here, what we might want to talk about is Caitlin instead. So let me just see if she's got anything more relevant. These are always tricky. Cool. So a lot of coronavirus, blah, blah, blah. So you know what? Maybe what I would do here, sorry if I'm kind of going off script, but let me just kind of look for this real quick. Flexport VP Sales Disaster. I said CRO. Blah, blah, blah. Today's episode. Specialization. That's great. Okay. So that was one of the key things. He actually doesn't really believe a ton in specialization. So what I would maybe do, I would start with the sales director. We're going to reach out to her because she's probably going to be more hands-on with either actually interviewing you or will know somebody who's going to be involved in your interview process. So I would go back to her profile, and then just refresh this here. Have either of you guys used anything like any tools in your previous roles for finding like work email addresses or doing any sort of like email sequencing?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Like SalesLoft, Outreach, something like that.
We use SalesLoft. We use Apollo, Zoom Info.
Perfect. So you may or may not have access to those types of tools or free ones, but I'm
Sadly,
happy to.
no.
Sadly, no. Okay, I'm happy to give you like a month free of Interseller to help you go through this yourself. And we basically it works a lot like Apollo, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just click on Mariana and see what we get. Mariana, Flexport.
I would always cringe when I see a name like hers because it has like the two names there. Yeah. So it's like,
it looks like, I mean, she probably has two assigned, and it looks like this is probably a newer one since she got married, but I feel pretty confident that that'll work. So we'll throw her email in there. I'm going to pick a campaign I already created for this. And then what was the exact title of the role we were applying for?
I believe it was sales development representative.
Right. So I'm just going to call it SDR. And the LinkedIn contact we're going to reference is, is her name really Ben Braverman? Ben Braverman.
Yeah.
Okay. Ben Braverman on Saster. Number 222. All right, so we'll save that here. I'm going to go open that up. SDR plus AE plus CS pods. Question mark, hey Mariana. And then boom, boom, boom. So this is just basically filling in the tag I had there in the template, right? Then pop in. Visualization. Be great if I could spell. Lead with the quote. You can even kind of like keep this or leave it, but the core of what I think is working really well in this process is sort of like shocking to their attention with something specific. In this case, I would try not to like focus on something unique to Ben, but something specifically that Ben mentions about the way sales works at Flexport. That's going to immediately get her attention. It's going to be familiar. And the only way that you would know about that is if you did research enough, even if you just went to read the transcript on here and sort of like grabbed out a nugget, you would show that you at least listened to something that their CRO said, thought about a very specific application of it, and then maybe what I would say is like, couldn't agree more. I personally have always felt SDR should be more integrated with AEs in my previous roles. Quick question, as I'm interested in the SDR posting role in NYC on Flexport's career page, I was curious if you could, and then I would say either like how your team works, or something to the effect of like how your team works with SDR, how your SDRs work directly with the AEs, as well as how involved they are post sale, something to that effect. Then the only thing I would maybe change here is, since we're not really getting a lot of great content for her, one that I've liked, let me just save this and I'll throw in, because I already wrote it else. There's another, I mean, obviously no one's probably going to take you up on this, but I think it just makes you a little bit more human and also like a believable New Yorker. Saying thanks while tying back into the fact that like everyone orders from Seamless. It sort of references like the whole COVID-19 without saying it, or saying it like every other person has when they've talked about it. And it's a pretty memorable way to exit.
Gotcha.
All right. So that was a bit of a stretch for me in 15 minutes, but what's sort of your initial reaction here, like on how usable an approach like this, either this specifically or this broadly, would be in applying to Flexport specifically, or the next sort of SDR role that looks interesting?
Yeah, no, I like it. It's you're right. It was definitely like just a mental switch for me, because that's something similar that I did in my role at the Muse, and sometimes it's just not really knowing where to start with that kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely something feasible. It takes about like 5 minutes at most to like just find some sort of thing on their LinkedIn, or like any articles or things that they're interested in, or something like that, and then just being able to show that you did homework on the person, but then and then you added something a little bit personal about yourself. And then the key thing that you did was it wasn't like a transactional ask, like asking like, you know, can I have an opportunity to get the job? It's like, tell me a little bit about what you have to say about this. They're talking about themselves. People love doing that. And that's money right there.
Totally. It's definitely, you caught, I think, the key difference with this approach is like, you know, ask for advice when you want to raise money, right? But by getting this, you're making it easy for her to like want to engage with a genuinely curious human. And if that wins, then it'll make asking for like the contact of the right recruiter, or like, who else should I talk to, you know, up my chances of getting to interview for this role. One kind of closing thing that just sort of popped into my head that I might even consider here, since generally I think like this is maybe like a second or third tier approach, because I am taking even though she doesn't necessarily need to like watch or be aware of this podcast, because we're pulling out something that she can talk about. It might have even been another angle that would be more directly related to Mariana, would be like referencing the fact that the job description mentions social selling, and asking her like, what's the most creative approach you or your team have taken to selling on LinkedIn.
Got it.
And then like vis-a-vis using, you used LinkedIn to sell to her. I think that would tie in really, really nice and probably get a solid response. I could talk to you offline too about other ideas, but I'll make sure that like I share this sort of rough like template and stuff that we put together here, so you have something to look at. But yeah, I'm glad that was generally pretty helpful and something that you think you could use.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Sweet. Peter, all right, we got about a good 20 minutes here. Anything you want to add to what we just went through there for Nick? You've been doing this quite a while yourself, and before we sort of jump into your kind of unique situation and approach.
No, I thought that was pretty interesting, pretty involved. I wasn't expecting you to go that deep, so I'm excited for it.
Okay, cool. Great. Love hearing that feedback. Let's jump into the same for you. Do you want to start with, let's talk about that aspirational one, if you don't mind, if that's okay.
Sure.
If you want to talk openly about it.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, I'd like to work for an organization like Techstars, right? For me, that's something that aligns with a lot of my wants and needs, aspirational, impact-wise, founder-wise, value-wise, a lot of things, ethos-wise.
Cool. Now, do you know anybody at Techstars?
Yeah, I know a bunch of people from Techstars. Not the hiring people, but definitely people from there.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I wonder if they have anything. Or let's actually, if we look, I'm curious at like what kind of roles they post anyway. If they're more like, these seem like very heavy ops, senior associate, what's the next stage? Intern, ops associate. I think what might be more interesting is if we go back to Techstars and we look at, say,
I think a lot of times with Techstars, like they don't always post like their program manager or program associate roles. It's very, at least from my experience, like close knit, where it's usually a referral.
You're cutting out a little bit there, Hytham.
Oh, can you guys hear me now better?
Yeah, that's better.
I was just saying that with Techstars, a lot of times I've seen it happen through referrals. They don't necessarily like post like program manager or program associate roles as much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's kind of what I was thinking here too, jumping into seeing it in the sales nav view would be like, let me get a sense of who works like in New York. I know, because I see like Mentor a lot associated with Techstars, but I don't really know how loosely affiliated that is. Like a lot of people could be listed as an advisor to some startup because they have like 25 basis points in advisory shares or something. So now that we've got Techstars, Peter, is there somebody, have you came across somebody at Techstars or like a YC or some sort of like startup accelerator that had a role that you would love to just like snap your fingers and have? Or is there someone that you've like come across who had a cool function?
I mean, one name you can look up in your LinkedIn would be Saba Kareem, Saba. So this dude his job is basically to go fly around the world and find the coolest startups and convince them to apply for Techstars.
That is very cool. And he started as a senior associate before becoming pipeline and scouting manager.
Yeah, and so one thing that I've noticed with Techstars is they do a lot of hire from within. So you'll see a lot of people that were founders that went through Techstars with their own startup, they end up working for Techstars. And same thing. So you go in as a startup, you become a mentor, or you become, a program manager or whatever. Is usually one of the, upgrades I see as path goes.
Let me just open up Joel here real quick. So it's funny too, like this is just another funny thing of like the pitfalls of the search and stuff here too, right? Because I look for, what is he listed as? Global Startup Pipeline Manager. I think that's what he has it listed. Manager of Global Startup Pipeline. But maybe I need to search in quotes because I can't actually find Saba here.
Yeah, you might have to search
So weird.
pipeline like in the title, if that's possible.
Yeah, I could try. Let's look specifically for pipeline.
Or like
Yeah.
in quotes.
Like clear keyword. Maybe, because he's not in New York. That's what I got to remove. Cool.
Oh,
So there's 3 startup pipeline managers, 1 in India and 2 in Boulder. That's interesting. Now, do you think this would require, for instance, like if you were to work at Techstars, would you go move to a location that role would sort of require you to be at, or would you rather sort of like stay in the greater New York area and then work on whatever role is most valuable in that geo?
I'd probably prefer to stay in this geographic rather than move to, their Kansas City accelerator or their Atlanta, Georgia accelerator or anything like that.
Okay, perfect. How tight of a relationship do you have with Saba?
Pretty good. He has made intros for me before. I know him personally, holiday parties, stuff like that.
Tight, okay. Like sort of right off, I mean, I'm thinking like understanding this trajectory and like how applicable this is to the, current environment. If it's still something where like it would start off as pipeline and scouting manager, or kind of like asking him directly who works under him. Because the other thing I'm thinking is like, if we tried to look for senior associate, I don't really know, maybe we could fill in here. Do you have any idea of like how you would try to position yourself for this somewhat broad role, or would you rather try to go straight to the source and say, you're the man, this is like something I would love to evolve into. Tell me about what this role underneath you, or what roles report up to you, and how can I prepare myself to get that role now, someday soon?
Mm-hmm. I think either approach can work with him. Probably, I think that senior associate type role, comes out like because he went through Techstars himself with his own company, and then his company got bought by HubSpot. So I think you get implanted into Techstars at a high level once you get in that way. So since I'm not going through Techstars accelerator with my own startup, I don't know if I could even start at that level. Maybe I would have to even begin at a junior associate level. I don't know. That's just my perception of it.
Hi, Tim. Were you going to say something there for a sec?
No, I'm listening. This is good. No, I did notice that he went through Techstars as an alumni. So I think just keep going down the road you guys are going. I think it's getting somewhere for sure.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing the last thing you said there, but it sounded like you're sort of confirming what we were just talking about. That like it seems kind of hard to break in, but I actually think that in and of itself is a great sort of like question to ask, or like a reason for outreach.
Yeah. Should I even try dude, like, tell it to me straight if I wanted to get in. Like, what can I start doing? I know it'll be a year, maybe even 2 years before I get the opportunity, but what can I do starting now to get me positioned in that point? And let him accelerate it. If he thinks it can happen quicker, then let him accelerate it. But just kind of open up the conversation that way.
Yep, totally. So we want to talk about the pipeline and scouting. And like, I think the thing I would talk about would be, I'm going to be a part of a HubSpot, right? Like,
This is someone you can text.
I don't know, like breaking into Techstars is maybe like necessarily what I would do, or something like Journey to, how was the title? Global Startup Pipeline. What was the manager? Like something like this. And like, again, the subject's not going to be as important for you, obviously, because you guys have a relationship, but it's not going to hurt. That effect.
Yeah. I mean, when I email him, I always still try to have a nice subject line because, whether he loves me or not, he still has 1,000 emails in his inbox.
Totally. Give him enough of a snippet so that he knows whether he needs to look at this right now to know what you're asking and then like work on it later, or like whether he can answer it, look at it, answer it in 5 seconds, and then move on with the day. Totally agree. And then I would just reference like always been a fan of yours and the work you have doing Techstars. I struggle to understand. I don't know about that, but like, it seems to me your success leading growth at Evolve and the eventual acquisition by HubSpot led to joining Techstars. I'm on the right track. Question. As I would love to work in a similar type of role for Techstars or another startup community. What can you share about how those who report up to you have found their way in, have broken in? What was there? What are the commonalities in their journeys? I think this is actually really particularly awesome for you because yours is so difficult. Like, really objectively defined because, like you said, you're going for an aspirational, like you're sort of making up in some cases the role, and they're not actively like looking to hire into it. You're almost creating budget, if you will, right? Like you're creating the awareness of a problem that they might not immediately be trying to solve, and then really sort of selling yourself into it. And no better place to go than the person who has had junior role, has this sort of senior role. You look in the organization, nobody else really has it. So like somebody either, headhunted him for this, or he maybe got involved and said, hey, this is what I would like to do. How about we create this role for me? I think this would be a really great way to not only understand what the potential is for you to join Techstars in a similar capacity, but like, how can you maybe go pitch yourself as that guy for something like Techstars?
Yeah, so that's definitely on the agenda too, is looking, organizations that are as similar to Techstars as I can find, and going that route as well. So, if I can, learn his method and apply that elsewhere, I think that would work pretty good.
Within Techstars, where do you just look at? Where would you? Anyway, something to that effect. But like, I think this could be, and I'll shoot this over to you, like the Slack or something, so you have just like, so you're not staring at a blank page. But I would personally like really love to see like what his feedback is too. It's a really cool type of role that I don't think anybody really knows anything about. And I agree that you sound like you're very uniquely suited to something like this. And for my own curiosity, I'd love to hear, what somebody like Saba thinks you should be doing to get to that place.
Yeah, definitely. When I have feedback to share, I'll definitely will chat back.
All right. Hytham,
Awesome.
we have like 5 minutes left. Anything you want to add in closing?
No, I think as usual, that was really awesome to see. I like Nick's was kind of focused in on a specific role. Peter's was interesting. Can you guys mute yourselves to get rid of the background noise?
I cannot. Yeah, Peter, can you guys real quick? One of you's got to turn back on.
Okay, thank you. No worries. So, to me, it was just interesting to jump into Nick's because it was like a very specific role that he was going after. And with Peter's, I think that a lot of people are probably in that position where the company isn't necessarily hiring, or it's just like a moonshot type of a company. And you do know a lot of people there, but you kind of struggle with like, how do I open up this conversation, and what do I ask for? How long is it going to take, and things like that. So in some ways it's a slow burn, but I think Steven made a really good point where if you stand out enough and you're able to create that demand, right? Like they'll figure out a way to get you in there, right? If it's not tomorrow, better believe that you're probably one out of maybe, I don't know how many people are applying to Techstars, but one of maybe hundreds, if not thousands of people that are going above and beyond and doing that. So I think, Peter, you have a really great chance since you have a really good relationship with Saba.
Yeah, I appreciate all that.
Nice. And you're a somewhat likable guy too, so that helps.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any last, Nick or Peter, anything you want to add here before we break?
No, nothing right now. Steven, if I don't know what I can do with introductions, but I can point you in the right direction with Prestige. They're kind of in a little bit of hot water right now because they had laid off like a bunch of people, but I can give you some pointers if that helps.
Yeah, that would be Super. Thank you.
Nice.
Sure.
I'll set up offline with you. I appreciate
this
that.
is great. No, this is really great. And Peter, like, I mean, I've known Peter for years. That's why I can kind of joke around. But I think you would actually do really well. Think about like ways that you can host some of these sessions with some of the things that you've been doing with like your writing and like building kind of an online brand for yourself. I think there's a whole nother application of a whole nother set of applications that candidates can use to do the same thing when they're looking for a job. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, definitely. If that's my angle and, Steve's angle with the LinkedIn Navigator and Interstellar, I think that definitely makes sense for me to host one that, that I can advise on, my methodology.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you guys so much. I'll definitely be in touch. And Nick, as always, will send stuff your way. Peter, same thing. Really appreciate you guys jumping on. Nice session.
All right, thank you guys.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.